Brian May is a well-known musician and an important character in the history of boy bands. He was a founding member of the legendary Queen band from the 1970s. With more than 50 years of global entertainment under his belt and a newly restored solo album, May's name is now synonymous with musical brilliance. But decades after his friend's death, Brian May's name is ultimately revealed by The Rock, exposing the creative genius behind the legendary band. Born on July 19, 1947, Brian Harold May was an ardent musician who followed his love of music from an early age. Inspired by the title of George Orwell's work, he started his first band, 1984. After attending Hampton Grammar School, Brian went on to study physics and mathematics at Imperial College London, where he earned a BSc in the subject. Despite being invited to work at the Jodrell Bank Observatory while pursuing his doctorate, Brian turned down the opportunity after impressing Sir Bernard Lovell with his grades. Brian's dreams of becoming a rock star were modest, devoid of drugs, and disapproved of the promiscuous lifestyle that rock stars like Rod Stewart were known for, despite his scholastic accomplishments. He felt that genuine love and closeness were more essential than his voice. At first, his father, who had made significant educational investments in his son, was dismayed by his choice to pursue music. Even if their odds of success were limited, Brian and his bandmates had some unwavering talent and luck, as well as an unwavering belief in their potential. Prior to Queen, Brian formed Smile, a band that included bassist and lead singer Tim Staffel, and later drummer Roger Taylor. Tim's departure from the band during their 2-year tenure, 1968 to 1970, left them with a repertoire of 9 songs. In the annals of music history, Smile's brief existence is essential for establishing the foundation for the future Queen. They were a close-knit group that rose to prominence in the London rock scene of the 1960s and had some noteworthy relationships, including one with Ferric. After Tim quit the band, Freddie Mercury, later known as Freddie Mercury, was introduced to the group by Tim and soon after became a Smile fan. When Freddie saw an opportunity to step in and take over in 1970, he offered himself. The surviving members welcomed Freddie as their new lead singer and added Roger Taylor's pal Mike Gross to the bass lineup. On June 27, 1970, the recently formed group performed for the first time at a fundraiser event in Truro, when Freddie proposed changing the band's name to Queen. Eventually the others consented, and Freddie, taking inspiration from the lyric Mother Mercury, "Watch what they have done to me" from the song My Fairy King Improved and Ready to Play for a Crowd, changed his last name to Mercury. Drummer Roger has a personal connection to Truro, Cornwall, where Queen, a London-based band, started their career in 1970. The band's first performance brought in $50, and on July 18, 1970, nearly a month later, they played their first gig in London. Their early set lists included a variety of rock and roll covers, including Cliff Richard and the Shadows, as well as songs that would subsequently appear on their first 2 albums. Although the band sounded good, producer John Anthony thought they needed a new foundation. Mike quit the band after just 3 live performances, and Barry Mitchell, formerly of Crushed Butler, took his place. With Queen, Mitchell performed 13 times between August 1970 and January 1971. John Deacon joined Queen John in February of that year. He was a modest, accomplished bassist who brought important electronic abilities with him. Queen's first performance with the iconic lineup of Freddie, Brian Taylor, and John took place at a college in Sue, a little town outside of London, on July 2, 1970. Brian had gotten in touch with Pye Studios engineer Terry Yadden to see if he knew of any location where Queen might record Yadden. Freddie said that the band would now be called Queen. Because of Freddie's colorful nature, their friends laughed at the name choice at first. For merely 7 shillings and 6, or roughly 5 BS, Freddie persuaded them that the name had a regal quality worthy of their aim. While no one caught the whole set list, spectators got to see the recently christened Queen perform with DJ Jeff Spence as the opening act today. Brian and Roger were present at the unveiling of a blue plaque honoring Queen's July 18, 1970, debut concert at London's Imperial College in March 2013. That night's lineup included Mike on bass, Roger on drums, Brian on guitar, and Freddie on vocals. Shortly before the band made news, Barry Mitchell departed the group, saying he could never have predicted Queen's future success. There was a touching bond between Freddie Mercury and Brian May that made them feel like brothers rather than just fellow musicians. Despite his enormous success, they had a close bond that carried over from the stage into their private lives, giving rise to a special dynamic within Queen that was both touching and uplifting. Brian Eno considers his life and the significance of his musical career, especially in light of Queen's passing. He acknowledges that his musical idols are still his heroes and that communicating with them has never been simple for him. This demonstrates Brian's humility and sincere regard for the people who helped him along the way. In 1991, Brian was going through a difficult time in his life since he had lost one of his best friends, his father was dying of cancer, and his marriage was disintegrating. After Freddie died, music became his main source of comfort during this difficult time. He characterized it as a desperate attempt to hold on to anything that would eventually bring him back to light. Even after Queen's spectacular comeback to performing live in arenas with Adam Lambert at the front, Brian used to think that Queen was done thinking about those dark days. Brian, Roger, and John never really expected to lose Freddie because they thought his celebrity would somehow result in an unexpected and miraculous recovery. They were in a state of shock and amazement when Freddie died. After some time of struggling with the thought of being stuck in grief, Brian managed to move on. It does not feel like he left because he is a part of whatever they do, he realized. Queen is in him and he is in Queen. Currently, Brian is regarded as one of the great eccentrics of English music, well known for his public involvement, which includes his astrophysics PhD, love of Victorian stereoscopy, a type of stereophotography, and his fervent advocacy for animal rights. His wide range of interests has deep roots, demonstrating that his peculiarities are real and not just side effects of his success. There were some last memories that Brian made with Freddie before their time together abruptly ended. Brian talked movingly about his last conversation with Freddie, which happened on the latter's deathbed, during the interview. The poignant meeting took place at Freddie's Kensington residence, Garden Lodge, while he was passing away from AIDS-related illnesses. The band moved from London to their favorite recording studio in Switzerland, and Brian stated that Fred had told him he had AIDS sometime before he died. Freddie's last remarks to Brian revealed his strength, and by sharing this moment with him, Brian demonstrated his humility and admiration for his musical heroes. The speculations about Freddie May's health garnered so much media attention that photographers swarmed his residence and even looked through the groceries in his car for evidence of medication. It was startling how intrusive the press was at that trying time. In order to give Freddie the quiet and seclusion he required, the band made the decision to relocate from London to their favorite recording studio in Switzerland. Before Freddie confided in him about his AIDS diagnosis, which at the time was a death sentence, the time leading up to his death was a terrible one. Freddie was suffering, yet he was adamant about wanting to make music. While they were recording some of their last singles for the album Innuendo in Montreux, Switzerland, Brian mentioned that he discovered an incredible piece there. In addition to his musical output, Freddie is remembered for the bravery and dignity with which he handled his disease. In addition to demonstrating his remarkable character, his will to continue performing music in the face of personal tragedy allowed the band to take some much-needed time off in Montreux. Freddie worked really hard during his final days of recording, fitting in whenever he could. Jim Beach, Queen's longtime manager, spoke about Freddie's unwavering spirit on their final day together. Eventually, Brian heard of the death of his best friend, Peter Freestone, who shared Garden Lodge, Freddie's cherished Kensington residence, with his 6 cats and longtime lover Jim Hutton. On November 24, 1991, Freddie died in his Kensington home, Garden Lodge, of bronchial pneumonia brought on by symptoms from AIDS. Jim, his partner, lost his battle with lung cancer and passed away on January 1, 2010 at the age of 60. Even though their relationship was difficult at first, Freddie held on to it close to his death. This included his bond with Brian. Freddie's music and the ways he impacted people's lives during his lifetime carry on his memory and spirit even though he is no longer physically present. So viewers, for the next update please subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.